So, with 10th edition getting some new points very shortly, what are my top 10 Necron units that desperately need point changes? It's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. So, Necrons are in a really good place. We're running at about 50% on the tournament scene, and personally, I'm winning a vast majority of my games with the Necrons. However, it's not all perfect. We do have some issues, and with the imminent points changes that Games Workshop are just about to announce, I thought I would look at my top 10 units that I think need some point changes. So, without further ado, let's have a look at them. Now, for reference, I am not going to cover points increases. Let's face it, we've got some really good units that potentially might go up in points. However, I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I'm going to ignore those good units. We're only here to look at units which need points reductions. Okay, so in 10th position we've got the Psychomancer, which is currently 50 points. Not necessarily expensive. However, the Psychomancer is really competing in the character slots with a lot of other really good characters. And the Psychomancer's rules, well, they're not that great. At -1 to your opponent's leadership, and then they force them to take battle shock tests within 18 inches. It's okay. Battle shock isn't that effective in 10th edition. You've got the strat, which you can use for 1 CP to not let a unit be battle shocked. And I think for 50 points it's just a little bit overcosted. I'd like to see the Psychomancer at around 40 points. I think that would be a little bit more playable. However, it still has to compete with some really good characters. Now, next up is the named character Anrakur the Traveller, which is a really cool character. I know a lot of people like him. However, he's currently 95 points, and one issue with him is he can only lead Immortals. Plus, again, he's competing with some really good characters. Now, the rules for Anrakur aren't actually that bad. You get +1 to the wound roll, but of course it's only the Immortals. If you're playing Immortal heavy lists, potentially you might be playing Anrakur. However, I think he would be a bit more playable if he was a little bit cheaper. I'm thinking probably about 20 points less, about 75 points. Now, of course, I'd love to know what you think of my suggestions and also my top 10 units. I'm probably a little bit different from some of you. So yeah, make sure you comment with your thoughts. Okay, change the battery. So, 8th on my list are the Skorpekh Destroyers. Now, I have actually played the Skorpekh Destroyers in 10th edition, and they weren't too bad. However, I think where, again, they're competing with quite a few other units, a points reduction on these guys would be worthwhile. It's hard to say what points reduction, but maybe I'm thinking 30 points a model would be about right, so 90 points for 3, 180 for 6. Maybe then they might be a bit more playable. They are still pretty decent, it's just their damage output has been reduced quite a bit, but I wouldn't rule them out as a unit to play. I just think maybe they just need a little tweak on their points. Now, in 7th place, it's a similar situation to the Skorpekh Destroyers. We've got the Locust Destroyers. Again, a unit I have played. I think the main issue with the Locust Destroyers is the strength of their guns. Only strength 5. I think they really need to be strength 6. The points, I mean, they're not necessarily really overcosted at 30 points each. But I think if they were tweaked in points, we might see them on the table a bit more. Again, they're competing with some really good units like Tombblades. So I would suggest probably a points reduction of around 2 or 3 points, 28 points, 27 points. Maybe 25 points is a bit too much, but I'd love to know what you think. Okay, so in 6th place we've got the Tesseract Vault, coming in at 425 points. That's a lot of points. However, the Vault has some good abilities. Of course, it's got its Tesla Fears, 4 of those. That's a good amount of shooting, even though there's no AP and only 1 damage. It is strength 7 with 6 shots each. And then we have the powers of the Catan, which you can only select one power each turn. The powers are reasonable and you've got a good sort of selection of abilities. However, yeah, 425 points. Now I'll be honest, I haven't played the Tesseract Vault yet, and one reason for that is because of the points cost. 425 points, I mean it's a reasonable chunk of your army when you have so many other really good options. The Vault 425, I'm thinking is just a little bit too points heavy. I'd like to see it probably in the region of around 400. However, if you play the Vault and you disagree with me, then let us know in the comments box below. We're all here to learn about Necrons, learning from each other. And talking of that, if you do want to learn about Necrons and you're not subscribed yet, then how about giving me a sub so we can learn together? Okay, so before we move on to the top 5, I'd like to do a little honorary mention, if there's such a thing for points reductions, to 2 units which didn't quite make it into my list. The first one is Illuminor. Now, Illuminor has some really good rules. However, he is 220 points, and I think I'd like to see him slightly lower in points, maybe around 200, just to make him a little bit more playable. At 220 points, he's in that points cost where you'd probably only play him if you've got 1 or 2 characters. If it was a bit cheaper, you might be able to play him with maybe 2 or 3 other characters. Now the other unit I'm going to mention is the Silent King, coming in at 470 points. Now I haven't played the Silent King yet in 10th edition. I do plan to, but I haven't yet. I have seen people play him in 10th edition, and with good success. I think his rules are pretty okay. However, 470 points, when I look at those points, he never really makes it into my list. He's only going to make it in there if I specifically want to play the Silent King. Okay, so on to the top 5, and in 5th position we've got the Monolith, coming in at 385 points. Now the Monolith has some really good rules, there's no doubt about it. Teleporting units, some really fantastic guns. It's a great unit. However, I still haven't had a chance to play it because I just feel the points are just a little bit too much. I'm not 100% sure on what the right points level is for this model, because as I said, it has some good rules. I'm just not sure that I would invest that amount of points for a Monolith. I mean, I would love to play a list with 2 or 3 Monoliths in it, just because they're just so cool. I mean, I love the miniature, both the new one and the old one. But at 385, for me, personally, it's too expensive. Okay, so in 4th place, we've got the Doom Scythe, coming in at 225 points currently. Not particularly expensive, however, you have to compare it with some of the other big guns that we've got. The Doom Scythe gun is very decent. 3 shots, that's a fixed 3 shots at strength 16, minus 4 AP. The damage is D6 plus 1. It's not bad at all, especially as it sustains hits as well. We've also got, of course, the twin Tesla Destructor on there as well. It's got a decent amount of shooting. It does have the inherent issues that a flyer has, however, and when you compare it to our other big guns, the Locust Heavy Destroyers, the Doomsday Arcs, and even the Canoptic Doomstalker, I think it's just a little bit 2 points heavy at 225. I think it probably needs to be around 190, maybe 180 points. I know that's quite a big points drop. However, to make it viable compared to the other big guns that we've got, well, I think it probably needs that. However, I doubt it's going to come down that much. I mean, am I being a bit ridiculous there with the points cost for the Doom Scythe? Again, let me know in the comments box below. Okay, so in 3rd place, it's the Obelisk, which, to be fair, has always been in the worst Necron Units list, apart from maybe when it first came out. It's currently 325 points. Of course, it has the 4 Tesla Fears, so 6 shots each, strength 7, no AP, and just 1 damage. It's got the gravitic pulse to interfere with your opponent's movement. It has its usual inherent issues of no invulnerable save, which, let's face it, is just really bad. I mean, it's got a 2+ save, okay, but with no invuln, it's probably going to go down quite quick with its 22 wounds. For me, it's just a little bit overcosted for what it does. It needs to be a lot cheaper, probably around 280 if I had to put some points on it. Okay, so in second place we have the Triarch Praetorians coming in at, well, 270 points for 10. Now, when we first saw the Praetorian rules, we thought, at last, Games Workshop have given us some good rules for Praetorians. They do have some good rules. I mean, they can deep strike, they can re-roll charges, they can fall back and charge. However, they can't be led by a character. Okay, that's fine. If we're deep striking, maybe we don't need that. Their weapons are pretty decent as well. But that's a lot of points, 270 points. Again, when we've got quite a lot of other really good units. I think these are way overcosted. It's really hard to put a points cost on these, isn't it? But probably in the region of around 200 points, maybe 220 points, something like that. There's nothing worse than a unit which has really good rules but are just way overcosted in points compared to the rest of the index. And finally, talking about decent rules but way overcosted, we've got the Convergence of Dominion. I don't think anyone is going to be shocked with my number one choice. 255 points. They have some decent rules, allowing you to re-roll your RP dice when you're within 6 inches of a stone. I really like the rules. I mean, they got to a stage at the end of 9th edition where they were playable. I think most people were playing them. It's such a cool model. But now, 255 points. I mean, GW, what is going on? I mean, I'm finding it hard to put a points cost on these, but I don't think it's 255 points, GW. Are you sure you haven't made a mistake here? Are they not supposed to be like 55 points? I'm not sure how many points these should be, but I definitely know they shouldn't be 255 points. Let me know how many points you think the Convergence of Dominion should be. And if you've got anything else to contribute, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, here are some battle reports of me playing some of these units on the list, but certainly not all, for you to watch next.